Hello and welcome to Project Prototech Drone Edition. So, I have previously stated that one of my goals is to set up an array of drone fighters. Today, we're going to go ahead, take a look at what I built to be my drone fighter, and also take a look at all the programming and logic that needs to happen to make these fighters work. If you happen to come into this and you have not watched Project Prototech, that is perfectly fine. The only relevant thing that you need to know about Project Prototech is that it is a survival series that I am doing, and I have a big ass carrier with a flight deck that can accommodate 12 fighters. This flight deck looks approximately like this. There's a whole lot more to the carrier than just this, but this is the only part that we need to concern ourselves with. When we come down here, you can see that I have made this about 9 blocks wide. And then we have blocks that are basically 7 by 7 squares here that have a connector located in the middle. There's a slight slope at the back. So for our fighters to take off, they need to be able to go up, forward, turn, then come up. They need to do this in such a way that they don't run into each other. And then once they are up and moving, I need them to go ahead and follow my, player managed fighter. The only other restrictions is that I would like these to be printed inside my welder tunnel. And the welder tunnel basically is an array of welders that are coming down from the top and the bottom. I just drag the blueprint through it, but this puts a hard limit of no more than 10 small grid blocks high. 9 would be preferred, because if we're only 9 blocks, then I've got a little bit of wiggle room in there. Additionally, my welder tunnel is 7 large grid blocks wide, which comes out to be 35 blocks, small grid blocks wide. I'd say hard width limit, and then since I'm doing all of this in space, I don't really care about any length limits other than, it fits. But realistically, I can't go from the center more than 3 large grid blocks behind it, which means that wherever my connector is, I have an absolute maximum, probably of, 15 small grid blocks. So, those are my dimensions. Now, let's talk programming. So, for the functionality that I'm looking for, I have the following things that I need to do. I need to have an AI block that manages the undock sequence. The undock sequence needs to come over here, take off, come out, and come up. Then that at the end of that, it needs to go ahead and trigger the follow sequence. That follow sequence is then going to follow my personal fighter. I need to go ahead and have the dock sequence, where it's going to come back, it's going to come down carefully, it's going to come over the connector, it's going to come to the connector, and it's going to lock. Next, I need to be able to trigger the AI offense block. And for all of that, I'm going to be triggering that from action relays. So effectively, this means that as long as I am in radio antenna range, then I can go ahead and basically make these calls. Seems simple enough, right? Well, let's come on over to the wall. Woohoo! Yeah. Everything that you see here, Let me just pop in here really quick and turn his lights off. Move him out of the way. These are all the instructions that I have to do to go ahead and build these. So I have this broken down into a couple different pieces. First of all, I have my dock sequence. I have my undock sequence. I have my follow sequence. I have my attack sequence. I have my commands. I have all the events that I want to set up on my event controller. And that's basically all the logic that needs to happen. All of it is nicely written down, so that way, hopefully, I don't forget it. You know I'm going to forget it, right? Yeah, like, I've already forgotten half a dozen things just building this thing. Anyways, the restrictions that are here, and the things that I want to do here, then go ahead and put some restrictions into my design. Those restrictions basically boil down to these are the blocks that I am going to need at a bare minimum for my ship to function. Finally, I went ahead and I created my ship, and this is going to be the baseline version of the ship. When I am printing it off from the projector, it does not have any of the waypoint logic in. Why? Because I'm going to need to go ahead and set up the waypoints in relation to my carrier, which is probably going to have the beacon in a slightly different location than this mock-up does, and also to my fighter, which hasn't been printed yet. And then I'm going to need to have all of that set up so that way Fighter 1 is going to go onto that connector. Fighter 2 is going to go onto that connector. Fighter 3 is going to go onto that connector. Fighter 4 is going to go onto that connector. So I cannot use just a single blueprint to go ahead and print all of these fighters. I can use the baseline blueprint, set up all of the AI logic, then I can take a blueprint of the fighter at that point, and that is now going to permanently be Fighter 1 blueprint, Fighter 2 blueprint, Fighter 3 blueprint, Fighter 4 blueprint, etc. So all of that setup is going to have to happen after I get into my survival world, print them off from my baseline fighter. Alright. Are we following along so far? Alright. If you're not, comment down below. If there's something that I have discussed that is not making sense, say it. I need to know what you need more information on, and then go ahead and be able to dive into more detail there. For the rest of this episode, then, I'm going to go over what my logic is for all of this, and then what my eventual fighter design was. And then, at the end, we are going to go ahead and try and go set this up to have two separate fighters, Fighter 1 and Fighter 2, do some of this logic. Alright, let's get into this. First off, let's look at the commands. So the commands over here are the kind of baseline for these are the things that I want this fighter to do. So I want the fighter to undock, I want the fighter to return to base, I want the fighter to form up, I want the fighter to attack with its railguns, and then I want to have the fighter attack with its autocannons. Next, I want to be able to change the AI blocks to either target enemies only or target enemies and neutrals. And then I also want to be able to have it target weapons or target propulsion. Now, an important note here is that I am using two AI offense blocks. AI offense block number 1 is managing the railguns. This is going to be on a circle setting, so with that means is that this AI offense block is going to try and get into a range that I have dictated in the AI offense setup, and then it is going to try and circle at that range. Meanwhile, the autocannon block is set up so that way I am using the hit and run settings. This means that my fighter is going to dive in towards the enemy, and then at a certain distance, it's going to go ahead and say, okay, I'm close enough, and then it's going to do a 90-degree turn and burn away. This means that effectively it is going to dive in, firing at will, and then it's going to fly away before it rams the target. Now, why did I set this up this way? Primarily, this boils down to the fact that AI blocks, and this is relevant for both the AI blocks and also for any custom turret controllers that you may set up, don't handle multiple weapon systems well. It's going to go ahead and it's going to try and lead the target as it's needed to hit with one of the weapon systems. Because it's leading the target to hit with that single weapon system, though, if it is attempting to fire a second weapon system, that second weapon system is just straight up gonna miss. Additionally, when you are setting up the AI logic blocks, you can only go ahead and set it to either the circle setting, the hit and run setting, the stay at range setting, or the intercept setting. There is not an option to go ahead and change which setting it is using by the or inside like the quick menu bar. So I can't have a timer or an action relay say, hey, I want you to swap from circle to hit and run. You would have to have separate AI blocks that do those separate things. So, now that we've gone over all of that, let's go ahead and take a look at how that is actually accomplished. So, to do any of these commands, I need an action relay. That action relay is going to be set up to be on channel 1 through 9. I can change that to whatever channels I want. I'll probably do something like channels 31 through 39 or something like that. Just so that way I'm not going to accidentally set another action relay for, say, opening my hangar doors to channel 1 and then have drones go off and do something because I wanted to open my hangar. That would be annoying. So I need an action relay for every single one of these commands. And then I also need an antenna. We can come on over here to this baseline ship here and take a look at those action relays. And you can see that I have this set up exactly as it is on that command bar. So action relay 1 is going to go ahead and call my undock timer. Action relay 2 is going to go ahead and call my dock timer. Action 3 is going to go ahead and call my follow timer. Action 4 is going to go ahead and do a bunch of logic here. What logic? Well, I'm going to go ahead and turn the AI railgun behavior on, because that's for activating my railguns, and my autocannon behavior off. I am also going to, just to be sure, turn off the AI recorder behavior for undocking, docking, and following. Next, I want to double check that my AI flight behavior is on. I want to make sure that collision avoidance is on. I want to make sure that precision mode is off. And I want to set my max speed. Then I'm also going to go ahead and use a broadcast controller. And you can see I have gone ahead and put in a couple of these, let me change this, commands in. So message 1 is going to be docking failed. Message 2 is ready to go. Message 3 is attacking. Message 4, return to base. Message 5, target acquired. Message 6, looking for a target. So I have some sort of feedback for when my AI is working, and what my fighters are trying to do. Alright, now let's go back to those action relays again. So the autocannon attack is set up exactly the same as the railgun, except for I'm turning autocannons on and railguns off. Simple enough. Targeting the enemies. Here, it's nice and simple. We are just going and calling the AI offense for both autocannons and railguns and setting the attack mode to enemies only. Neutrals, same thing, just we're targeting enemies and neutrals. Target weapons does the same thing, but, we're coming in here and we're saying target weapons. And same things for target propulsion. So those are our action relays. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at what we need to set up for the AIs. Alright, so first things first, we have the docking procedure. So, here you can see that I would want to have when I call the dock action relay, it's calling the timer block dock 1. This is basically going ahead and saying, I want you to go to and turn on the AI docking stuff, and then the AI docking is then going to come flying on over 2.1 up here. Once it is up here over the carrier, we are then going to go ahead and call AI Dock 2. AI Dock 2 is going to go ahead and set my flight speed limit. It's going to turn on precision mode and turn off collision avoidance. We are doing this because we want to make sure that the fighter moves nice and slow. We want to make sure that as the fighter is coming down to dock, it doesn't see the frame of the carrier around it and go, I don't know what I'm doing, and then spaz out and not actually dock. Precision mode also means that it is going to try and stay very, very close to these waypoints and to these lines. So as long as it's doing that, it will come on down here, and then it will attempt to dock. However, when it is in precision mode, it is being very, very picky about that, and it is not moving very fast. Which is why we want precision mode off when we are in our offense formation. So, we have waypoint number 1, which is, as mentioned, high above. Waypoint number 2 is just above the deck. Waypoint number 3 is going to be this little spot that's a little bit above the connector. So right over here, it says 2 and 3 right there. And what we are doing here is we are going to go ahead and we're going to start the docking failed timer. The docking failed timer is basically just going to go ahead and have a 10-second countdown that then transmits docking failed if that goes off. Hopefully it doesn't, though, because it's then going to go to waypoint 4, where we attempt to lock, and if I'm thinking far enough ahead, waypoint 5, where it will once again attempt to lock. The broadcast for that docking fail timer gets stopped in our event controller. So we have our normal docking event controller, which you should probably be setting up on all of your ships, especially fighter ships, even if you are controlling it manually, to do things like set your batteries to recharge, stockpile all your gases, turn off all your thrusters and gyros and stuff, so that way it's not fighting your ship when your ship that it's docked to is moving. That sort of things. We're just making use of that, and then we are also adding in the call to turn or to stop that specific timer in that event controller. Simple enough, but because it is specific to which connector this thing is connecting to, I cannot set this up ahead of time. I have to set this up once I'm into my actual world. Undocking. Same business. We're going to go ahead and we're going to call an undock timer. This undock timer is going to go ahead and turn on the AI flight. It's going to turn on collision avoidance. Sorry, should be turning off collision avoidance. Let me change that. Set the AI speed to 10 meters per second and set precision mode on. Again, this is just so that way it doesn't spaz out when it sees the rest of the carrier around it. And then it's going to go up from 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, we want to go ahead and set the AI recorder to undock. Or for the undock recorder, we want to set the AI behavior on and hit play. And of course, we want to have the AI flight behavior turn on. Now, what is the actual setup? We need to go ahead and have a series of waypoints. Waypoint number 1, I generally like to have set directly above the connector, just because that's going to be the initial starting position. Waypoint number 2, we're going to come up and away a little bit. Waypoint 3, we're going to move to the center of the runway. And then waypoint 4 is high above the carrier. Once we get to waypoint 4, we want to then go ahead and trigger the follow timer. In that follow timer, we want to go into the AI flight. We want to set the speed to 100 meters per second, precision mode off, collision avoidance on. Collision avoidance on. There we go. And then we want to have our AI follow recorder turn the behavior on, set play on, and set repeat. Now, I can already sense some questions. What do you mean AI follow recorder? If you want it following you, why aren't you using the AI basic task block? Well, the answer to that is actually fairly simple. The AI basic task block is wanting to go ahead and stay at a range from you of whatever range you set. 10, 20, 50 meters, whatever you want it to be. This is perfectly acceptable if you just have a single drone that is following you around. It is not acceptable when you are having multiple drones follow you around. Why? Because we want to go ahead and we want to have these other drones follow us at different points. If I just have them all follow and I start flying along, they are all eventually just going to end up lining up behind my master fighter. And if I haven't been careful setting those ranges, they're going to run into each other. Or they're going to have their AI collision behavior on and go bounce, 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 bounce all over the place, and then struggle to actually follow me. But if I go into the AI recorder, I set a destination for that, and I set it onto repeat, then that fighter is always going to be constantly trying to come to that waypoint. You can see right here, I have this one here is going to this particular waypoint right here. And because that fighter is not moving, he's not moving. But if I go ahead and I grab my master fighter and move him around, he's going to try and keep this exact same position in relation to this fighter. Let me demonstrate. So, those two fighters there and there are currently in their follow behavior. If I come up, and I broke something. I probably have it. Did I set it to follow the carrier beacon? AI follow. Nope, it's that here. Alright, delete all waypoints, add waypoint. Cool. Very important, you need to have these set to follow the beacon, not GPS point, because then if you move along, your fighter is going to then fly back to wherever it is that you originally set up your GPS point. You also want to make sure that it's following the correct beacon. This one, I probably did the exact same thing too. AI follow. Yep. Delete all waypoints. Add waypoint. There we go. Alright. Now... Hmm? Hmm? You are not moving. Why are you not moving? Okay. Oh, it helps if the AI blocks are on. Yeah. And while I'm at this, action relays, are you on? There we go. Yes, they are. Okay. Let's try this again. I want to form up. There we go. Helps if you turn things on. Alright. I want to move up. I want to move up. Hey, look! They are following me around. Next, I want to turn. And note how they are trying to keep that relation to my ship. Move this back over here. Nice and easy. Okay. That's follow. Alright. Now, for the attack, I have the AI blocks set up so that way the AI block autocannon is set for hit and run, AI block railgun is set for circle and orbit. I can come on over to my baseline ship here and just take a quick peek, and we can take a look at what happens here. So, going in here, I've set the target search interval to be about 10 seconds. The default or the threatening subsystem is set to default, but if I go ahead and I send that command to target weapons or target propulsion, it's going to change that. Pattern is hit and run, and I want it to break off to about 250 meters away, or when it's about 250 meters away, and it's going to retreat to about 1,000 meters before it then comes wailing back in. I have given it access to the autocannons, and only the autocannons. And then the target priority is going to be the closest thing. Railguns, very, very similar. Right now the search interval is a bit larger. You know, we can go ahead and set this down to 10. Got the threatening subsystem, but this one is set to the circle and orbit. So this is going to be trying to keep at about 1,100 meters, and I have given it access to the railguns. The other thing that I want to note here is that you can go into setup actions. So I've done two things. First off, when my fighter is just flying around and has not detected any enemies, my lights are set to this bisque color. For reference, if I come into my lights setting, you could just do set color, and I have this set to be 255 to 25 and then 200. And that is the color that I have them set to. Nice and easy. Then, when the railguns have acquired or have detected a threat, they're going to set all the lights to a turquoise color. When the autocannons detect something and its autocannon is active, they're going to be a crimson color. Just, because you can. Next, I have it set so I'm transmitting message of 5 and 6 from my broadcast controller. And I can come on over here to that broadcast controller and see that at target acquired and looking for a target. Note, this is basically just going to trigger whenever that thing changes. So if I have set the AI to active, and then it acquires a target, it's going to say target acquired once. It's not going to constantly keep pinging you that the target is acquired, unless it acquires a target and then it acquires a different target. Similarly, it's going to go to looking for target, broadcast that once, and like for instance, if I set my AI blocks active right now, it'll transmit looking for target, and then not actually acquire anything because there's no enemies around. Alright. Have I finished the logic? No. Event controllers. So I have 4 event controllers that I want set up. I actually decided after this to reduce that to 3, where instead of autocannon and railgun ammo separately, I'm just going ahead and saying, if any of these are out of ammo, let's go ahead and return to base. Additionally, if my battery is low, let's return to base. Finally, docking timer, which is just going to be all the usual docking procedures. And I can go ahead and take a look at this. So you can see I changed it up a little bit since I had the 4 event controllers. I added one more thing for cockpit occupied rather than having separate low ammos. So what exactly is set up here? Low ammo, I'm checking cargo filled percentage for all of the turrets. If the cargo fill percentage is below 5%, which should basically just mean that it has no ammo, and let's go ahead and set an AND gate to that, so that way all of the turrets have to be out. Then it will go ahead and call the dock timer. So this means that when this ship is completely out of ammo, it's going to go ahead and go, I need to go back to base to rearm. Simple enough. Next up, docking. Low battery. Low battery, so should not be cargo filled percent. I guess I didn't set this up. We are going to go to stored power for all the batteries. Toss that AND gate in there, and if we are less than, say, 20%, we want equal or less than, then we're going to go in here and we're going to call the dock timer. So basically, once again, return to base. Alright, next event controller. If the connector is locked or unlocked, we want to turn the AI flight behavior off when we are connected and on when we are disconnected. Then, when we're going to have gyros off and on, thrusters off and on, lights off and on, turrets off and on, antenna off and on. Note here, if it is connected to the base and the base has its antenna, and I send a message on that action relay, it will still trigger that action relay because there's still an antenna on the grid that is connected to. Even though these are drones, I still stuck a cockpit in them, and I have hydrogen and oxygen in there just in case. Because, there's always the possibility that my primary ship gets shot out from under me, and then I want to go ahead and hop in. Or I could be, going and salvaging some stuff, and then decide, wait a second here, I need to, go hop into something and just kind of sit around for a little bit. Next up, I'm turning off that dock failed timer, just stopping it when I connect. And and that means that I don't need to have a separate event controller set up for doing the exact same thing. Finally, we are coming in. Oh, batteries are number 1, and the AI is number 0. So I have 10 different things all connected to this event controller. Whew, boy. Finally, cockpit occupied. Basically, if I hop into the cockpit, I want full control of this. So I'm going in, and I am turning off all of the AI blocks if I hop in the cockpit. This means that if I hop into any of these cockpits, I am now flying this ship around, not the AI. Very important. Let's see here. Took a quick look at what my design criteria was for all of this, and then if I go ahead and I take this baseline into my survival world and print it off, what do I need to do? So, by default, to make sure that this thing doesn't get really confused as I'm doing testing, I have all the action relays turned off. I'm going to need to set up the AI dock sequences for docking, undocking, and following. This is basically going through and setting the waypoints, and then if I come up to where's oh, that's Furbolg. Oh, this is Furbolg baseline. This is actually Furbolg 2. Furbolg 2. Antenna Furbolg 2. Thank you. So if I come up to Furbolg 2 here, he is currently sitting around, being a silly drone. What was I going to say? So I'm going to need to be coming in here. I'm going to need to be turning all the action relays on. I'm going to need to set up the recorders so that way it does its various things. But this is also part of the reason why I have gone ahead and used timers everywhere rather than the extra stuff that you can stick in the AI block. Just because if I do that way, I can just call the timer instead of needing to call or rebuild that entire block sequence. What do I mean by that? Let me come on over to the docking timer. When I come down here, you can see that I go to waypoint 1. Once I am at waypoint 1, I'm going to trigger the dock 2 timer. I've got waypoints 2, 3, and then 4. At waypoint 4, I'm calling the dock failed timer. Waypoint 5, I'm attempting to lock the connector. Waypoint 6, I'm attempting to lock the connector. I have to go ahead and set up all of this every single time, and I cannot just rely on this being printed until after I have this in my survival world, have it all set up, and then I make a separate blueprint from that one. So this means that I'm going to have my baseline blueprint, which is basically everything except for the AI stuff set up. Then I'm going to have 12 additional blueprints, one for each of my docking points. And then I'm going to have the 14th blueprint, which is the slightly modified Furbolg lead. It's lead because it's red, obviously. But here I've made a few changes to it, so that way rather than having the action relays set up to go ahead and call the AI blocks, the action relays have all basically been stripped. But I'm keeping them all, so that way I can come in here and put them on my hotbar. So with them all on my hotbar, come on, stop it. Now, rather than having to remember, okay, well, on channel 1 was my dock sequence, so I need to call set channel and send signal on channel 1, and then do the same for channel 2 and 3. No, I can just go ahead and grab that specific action relay, and then just say send signal. And because that has been set up to be these basically hard-coded into whatever channel I'm using. That means that if something breaks, like my cockpit gets shot out in an engagement, when I'm coming back in to do this, I don't need to go, oh shoot, what channels was I on again? Let me go sign where I wrote it down. No, no, no. All of that will be right here. No extra thinking need to be done. All right. So, I have rambled on for 40 minutes about logic. Let's go ahead and take a look at my fighter design then. So, I started off with this pile of garbage here. This thing, I stuck some autocannons on it just to be sure, stuck some thrusters on, there's some gyros hiding in here somewhere, I'm sure, I don't know where. But this was basically my baseline test where I started slapping in all of those AI blocks, all of my action relays, and started testing things out. So you can go ahead and see that I did this as the verbal base, and this is where I was thinking about, okay, well, do I want to have follow the carrier be a separate thing, or do I just want it to follow the fighter? Decided to cut out some of the logic so I don't have follow carrier in my final design. Um, you can see I have more event controllers in here. I have more recorders. I put in an AI basic block because I was doing some testing with that. I added an AI defensive block to try and use that as the trigger for going and activating the offense block. Because what you can do is you can have the defense block set to the flee trigger always. So this is going to flee when it detects another grid within 2,500 meters. Um, but what you could do is rather than flee, you can have it set up actions and turn on the AI offensive. So basically using that as, a radar system, if you will. Um, Additionally, I could go ahead and tie that because it's effectively an event controller, with the event being that a target has been detected. And I can call a timer. I can call like, hey, time to change my lights, time to put on combat mode, time to do whatever it is that I want to do when an enemy is detected. Great thing to do would be broadcast controller and say, alert, alert, enemy has been detected in the area. And that's something that you could just put on a static grid too. So that way, hey, something's been detected, write it out. But again, this thing here was basically just my testing platform where I went ahead and copied this a couple times, tried sticking it in, see if I could set things up so that way I could have things dock and undock without running into each other. And that was what eventually dictated all of the logic on this board. If you are doing something like this for yourself, I highly, highly recommend having a little basic thing like that you do your testing with to make sure that you have all the logic that you want in. Now let's go ahead and look at the ship itself. So I went ahead and I put a connector in the middle, put some small blocks down to say this is my max size, and then I focused on the core components. This block here has all of my AI blocks. Now, one of the very important things that you want to do is that you want to have your AI recorder blocks, for docking especially, for everything else doesn't matter, but for docking especially, you want that directly over the connector, or directly in line with the connector that you are docking with. If I were to, say, put that up here, well, it could be a little off and have the ship at a small angle, and now the connector isn't connecting. No, we want the recorder directly over this connector when we are looking at docking. For everything else, it doesn't matter where you put it. You can stick it everywhere. But you can see here that I have a connector. I have a conveyor converter to go from this larger conveyor port to a smaller one. This is then coming back here to another conveyor converter, so that way I can then go ahead and put a cargo container right here. Since all that the ship is carrying is going to be ammo, that's perfectly okay, but it does mean that some components will not be able to flow through here. Ammo does, though, so that's all that matters. Then, this space directly above the connector, I was able to shove in all of my logic blocks. So there are 27 different logic blocks in here. All of my action relays, all of my timers, all of my AI blocks. There's a remote control in there, just in case. All of my event controllers. Basically, all my logic is centralized in this box. From there, just a little bit of work. Let's go ahead. I'm sticking the cockpit on these just to make it easy for myself when I'm setting up all my logic later. So that way I'm not having to do all that from like a remote control or like slap on a temporary seat or something like that. Especially because I have radiation turned on in my world. Then start to get some idea of what sort of weapons I want on. Decided, hey, I want some railguns, I want some autocannon turrets, and I want some autocannons. Simple enough. Next up, time to go ahead and do a little bit of shaping. Got a big nose because we need to work around those railguns. I probably could have shrunk the nose some, but I could not really shrink the back much without doing a lot of funny business with the engines. As you can see, I still have a little bit of range in the back, so basically 2 blocks clearance in the back. But I just go ahead and stick some thrusters onto the ship, and then make sure that I have enough batteries that I can shoot the railguns and thrust in all directions without overloading my power. Very, very important with AI ships. Make sure that you can do the check of going up, left, and forwards, or whatever 3 directions you want, without maxing out your power. Otherwise, the AI just does not. It's not very happy with you about that. Coming on over here, you can see that basically what I did here is I finished shaping out the front, added a little bit more small thrusters just to try and get an idea, and then started trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do with the back of the ship. Yeah, mostly just armor shaping. Over here, I then go ahead and I finish shaping out, decide to go ahead and stick another autocannon turret on the ends, and then change this out a little bit so that way I don't accidentally shoot my own turret, because I hear that's bad for you. Right now, I've done some armor shaping. It's not a complete brick. However, it's just light armor that's been shaped. Here, I go ahead and I start greebling this thing. I'm keeping with the single color just to, see what I can get that stands out just on shape alone. We've got these new blocks, or like partial, what are they called? Let me find them here really quick. Rounded edges. So the rounded edges that came out in the Core Systems DLC. Beam blocks, which are basically the exact same thing as light armor, but look different, because that's cool. The rounded edges are going to be weaker than armor. However, basically everywhere that it's put, I just have tons of armor blocks anyways, so I'm not too worried. I will say that the ship is built entirely out of light armor, and I have found that that works for me because the heavy armor makes your ship slower and harder to dodge, but there's so many effectively ablative pieces of armor on here that I have taken, small fighters out, taken some pretty significant damage, and still been able to fly away. I need to fly through my repair projector or repair system at the end, but that wasn't a big deal. Just make sure that I have, an inventory manager running, so that way I don't run out of parts as I go and run this through the repair system. And then, time to start experimenting with color. I just went ahead here and chose to do the neon colorable lights with a dark green for that, so it's like a black and dark green. Then gold because it's shiny and it pops. And then here I did this like retro future light blue color. And 3 colors for the ship, and that's it. Changed texture a little bit. Basically, I have those 3 textures and 3 colors, and that is pretty much the entire ship. You can see back here that up there is where I've stored some of the gyros. There's the antenna. I did end up making a few modifications after this, things that I forgot, like if I come on over here to the baseline. Whoops, I forgot my merge block. Let's put that in. Oh, hey, I probably need a projector on this ship. Yeah, shove that in there. Let's see. Is there anything else that I needed? Not on this variation. However, since I basically took this exact same ship and made that my main ship, this ship needed a few other things, like a beacon. So there's a beacon hiding in here. I still have that merge block and the projector in there. And then, of course, to make sure that it stands out from my drones, in case, I can't be bothered to see that, hey, there's a beacon there, or read the text that I put on it. Nope, I paint it red. There we go. Done. Woohoo! So, that's design. Finally, testing. I want these 2 fighters to go dock. So I'm going to hit action relay number 2. Are my action relays on? Yes, they are. Ah, there we go. Uh-oh, we've got a problem. I did not change my timers. Oh no. Well, this will certainly end well for me, right? Uh-oh. Alright. I want Firbolg 1. Come here. I want you to move out of the way! There we go. Firbolg 2 is going down for docking. You can see it's going down, turning, moving over. And it's docked! Perfect! You're back on. I call this again. Okay, I'm gonna wait for that. Returning to base. Okay, perfect. So, I can see now that I need to go in and make sure that the, go dock timers are set to different lengths. So that way they're not all charging back to try and dock at the same time. Because as we just saw there, that's less than useful. But now we can wander on over here. Watch it. And it's docked. Perfect. Alright, let's come on in here. And I want to find timer undock. This one is set to 10 seconds. This one is set to 20 seconds. Okay, perfect. Then I want to come up here where I can watch these, and then I want to call the undock timers. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, Firbolg 1 is undocking. Whee! Out he comes. Up! Firbolg 2 is undocking. Whee! Out he comes. Alright, ready to go. Ready to go. Perfect. Alright, so you, let's come check something out about you. Okay, broadcast controller. I want you to be Firbolg 1. Okay. And then I want you to come on over here, and I want you to be broadcast controller. Firbolg 2. There we go. Alrighty. Now I want to go ahead and say attack. Attacking. Woohoo! Alright, they're just sitting there. There's nothing going on because there's no enemies nearby. Cannot detect anything. When I move around, they are not following me. Basically, they're just going to sit there until something shows up in range. So don't do this until, something is in range. But I can have them form up now. Ready to go. There we go. And we've got Firbolg 1 and Firbolg 2 both responding. Alright. Now, let me come on over here. Make sure that I set that docking timer to be a different length. Dock 1 is set to 25. Cool. And then I want to come on over to Firbolg lead. And call dock. Alright, Firbolg 1 is going to wait 10 seconds now. And he's heading back to dock. Now, if I remember right, they should be actually making a broadcast when they do this, but they're not, so, interesting. Oh. I called undock, not dock. Whoops. Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. On the bright side, all the damage they took from that should be fairly quickly repaired by just running through the welder wall. Okay. And because he was already at that anti-collision avoidance was turned off, that means that they're not futzing around. Alrighty. Go and dock. Please dock a little bit faster. Okay, I need to change some waypoints there, because he's scraping some. I have this sneaky suspicion here that I had things set to be not following the carrier. And the docking. Yep, it was default locations, not the carrier beacon. So I need to go back and set all those up again. Luckily, this is all happening in my test world, so I can just come back on over here and make sure that all that gets set up in my setup diagram here. Okay, I've got adjust the timers. I've got turn on the action relays. Adjust the timer. Um, Set up the follow recorder. I also want to go ahead and change fighter name, change antenna name, change broadcast controller name. There we go. Just more things that I need to do when I set these up in my survival world. Oh boy. Alright. I have been talking for an hour. I think it is high time that I go ahead and just kind of take this thing, slap it in front of this lovely little thing here, make sure that everything can be seen, so that way when you guys see the thumbnail for this, you know if this is really something that you want to be looking into. And that is going to be my fighter guide. So, if you came to this just for watching drone setup and listening to me ramble about all the things that I need to do to make the drones do what I want, thank you very much for watching. If you have questions about any of the setup, or you're not quite sure what I'm doing here, I am not exactly a drone expert, but by all means, ask in the comments and I will try to answer if I know the answer. If I don't know the answer, depending upon what the question is, it might bother me enough that I have to go ahead and look it up and make a whole new video about it. Otherwise, if you are here for Project Prototech, my next episode on Project Prototech will be going ahead and taking these ships or these fighters and building them and trying to get them all set up inside Project Prototech for my carrier there, and then see how well they work when I take a bunch of fighters against the Factorum. So if you want to see these things in actual combat, keep your eye open, because I am planning on taking these things out for PvE engagements. Otherwise, thank you for watching it all the way to the end, and I will see you next time.